now push record because I want to welcome everybody who's from so many different states. I would like to tell you from where all you are coming from. We have Colorado, we have Texas,
enter your
we
meeting ID,
have Oklahoma, we have Louisiana, New Mexico, Nebraska, North Dakota, Arkansas, and California. So we want to thank you all for being
enter
here.
your participant ID followed by
I'm
pound.
going to try
Otherwise,
to
just press pound to
mute
continue.
everybody myself again. Somehow they keep getting through. So we want to recognize our sponsors, and I want to make sure you know that we could not be doing this without them. They have stood by us during these trying times, and we cannot thank them enough for their support. Many of you know LL Johnson and Mr. Dan Melchior, along with Professional Turf Products and Toro. Mr. Paul Reed from Rainbird, and Edwin Arcio from Musco Lighting. It has been so great to work with these folks over the first 3 years of PPMA, and for them to now stand by us speaks volumes to their dedication to our profession and education in the profession. So thank you so much to our sponsors. During this session, I would like you to use the chat feature, which is either going to be at the bottom or the top of your screen, to ask questions. We will do a Q&A at the end of Dr. Koski's presentation, and I will sort of filter those questions. You can watch the questions pop up if you want to put up your chat feature and see if other people might be asking the same question you might have. So at this time, Dr. Koski, are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay. So I would like to introduce Dr. Tony Koski. He is the Extension Turf Specialist from Colorado State University. He has been with CSU since 1988. He teaches turf grass management and advises turf management students in the Department of Horticulture and Landscape Architecture. As Extension Specialist, Tony has worked with all facets of our industry, from golf courses and ball fields to sports turf, professional lawn care, and sod production. He's done research in turf fertility, soil management, and weed control. So please welcome Dr. Koski. I'm going to stop sharing so that you can have the floor, sir. Thank you for doing this for us.
Thanks, Mindy. And I want to welcome everyone. Thanks for taking time out of your busy day to be with us. So yeah, as Mindy said, any kind of questions you have, type them into the chat box, and we'll try to answer those. Or if you want to save them till the end, I'll stay as long as you want to stay at the end. So so we'll just we'll get right into it here. And again, thanking all those sponsors too. So one thing, and I'm going to turn my video off too. You don't need to see me gesticulating in the background here. So so I'm going to stop sharing my video, but I'm still at the other end. You'll still hear me here. So my title was, at least the one that Mindy and I talked about a while back, was Alternative Herbicides for Weed Management and Turf. But even I could not stretch that out to an hour. And the speaker next week was going to talk about alternative insecticides, but he's going to go in a different direction. Whitney Cranshaw from CSU. He's legendary entomologist, just retired. But I would really encourage you to tune in for what he's got to talk about next week. So I changed my title slightly here. And so my title is going to be Alternative Pesticides for Pest Management in Turf. So I'm going to enlarge upon the using alternative herbicides. We'll talk about insecticides, alternatives, then also fungicides, and maybe even a little bit about critters like rabbits. So really, a lot of times when people are thinking about or considering what we call alternative pesticides, in a lot of cases they're looking at going to organic or natural turf management. And so I just thought I would start out talking about that, why people do it, maybe some of the barriers to doing this. Maybe some of you are kind of partially doing this. I see all these different variations on the theme. Some parks are totally 100% organic as far as fertilizer and any kind of pesticides they use. Some of them, they do the organic fertilizers, but they're still using a little bit of traditional pesticides. All kinds of variations on that theme. But the reasons that people do it are many and varied. Some places just don't want to use pesticides anymore, and they don't want to use even synthetic fertilizers. And that could be for health concerns. And we won't get into the politics of that. We won't get into the science of that. A lot of times politics and science don't match very well or meet very well. So we won't go there with that topic, but I never discount people's reasons for wanting to do organic landscape management. And I'll never try to dissuade them. Now, if they have a very incorrect premise about things, I'll try to present some science just to broaden their perspective on the topic. But it's like many things in life, politics and all kinds of things. A lot of times people aren't going to be swayed unless they're in the middle. And then sometimes, we can have reasonable conversations about things, but we're not going to go in that direction. Sometimes there are environmental concerns, water quality. You might have a body of water close by that you're worried about, chemistry getting into. Could be wildlife concerns. Could be economics. Sometimes there's a perception that using less in the way of synthetics is going to be a cheaper way to manage turf. I haven't found that to be the case, but sometimes there are people that claim they're saving money by doing natural lawn care. So, and then sometimes you just have to do it. You've been told to do it, and it's kind of against your will. But it's like, okay, some higher authority wants me to do this in a natural or organic way, so that's the direction we're going to go. So, different reasons, and I just thought I'd start out with that. What are some of the obstacles to going to organic if you do want to do it? One is there's no real legal definition of what organic turf care is. This particularly may be important for lawn care companies that may want to go organic, and then they're worried about other companies advertising themselves as organic, but quote unquote cheating the system or cheating on the definition of what organic is. And so that's sometimes an impediment. It's like, if I'm going to do it honestly, I want everyone to, but there's no legislation, there's no legal definition of organic turf care, not like there is for organic vegetable production, for example, or organic meat or milk production. There are national organic standards set by the U.S. Department of Agriculture that must be followed. You have to be licensed. Your ground has to be certified organic. So nothing like that for turf management yet. And I don't foresee that anytime in the future, unless maybe a certain rogue county somewhere, someplace happens to want to do that. But I would expect that more to happen on a state level than anything. Other impediments: lack of effective pest management tools. We've got some fairly good insect management tools, as you'll see. But when it comes to herbicides, not really good ones. When it comes to fungicides, not real good ones. Sometimes there's a bunch of stuff out there, but there's a question as to how well they work. Some of these products are expensive. The fertilizers on a per pound of nitrogen basis are often quite expensive. So sometimes they're feeling quality must be sacrificed if you're going to go organic, and that's not the case. Although it's more difficult in a place where there's a lot of rain and humidity, in the southeast, the east, the Midwest, it's more difficult to go organic and not use traditional pesticides than it is, for example, in a place like Colorado, where I am, or Utah, or Wyoming, or New Mexico, or Arizona, where we have very low humidity, so we tend to have less disease. We can control moisture because we get very little rainfall. So when you can control moisture, a lot of times you can very effectively control the type of pest problems you have in a turf system. But where you're getting rain like I've been seeing on Twitter and places like Philadelphia and Pennsylvania and New York and out there where they're getting 9 inches of rain in a day, it's pretty hard to sometimes manage pest problems when you can't control that amount of moisture. So sometimes there's just an expertise concern. Do I really know how to do this? Where do I learn how to do this? All that type of thing. And probably a biggest one is it involves change, and human beings just don't like to change. Some people do. They like the challenges. Like, I want to try something new and let's try this. But in a lot of cases, people don't like the change. It could be customers don't like the change. It could be you don't like the change. It could be the boss doesn't like the change. It could be people that work for you don't want to change. But change can be difficult, and there's some speed bumps along the way and learning curves. And so sometimes that can be an impediment, if you will, to adopting these. So I encourage people to kind of transition into natural organic turf management if they have that luxury and the opportunity to do that. Maybe start with doing the fertilizers and testing out the pest management tools, and start working your way towards that goal of being maybe 100% natural or organic. So let's we'll go onto the, I like to show this picture though. And so in Chicago, I don't know if anyone's on from Chicago, and I grew up in the Chicago area, and the Chicago Park District made the decision to go organic in terms of pest management and that type of thing. And so there's more than a little controversy in some places, especially in the spring when the dandelions come up like this and people think, things are gone to hell in a handbasket and nobody's taking care of the parks and that kind of thing. But once these dandelions once they flower, they kind of disappear. A lot of times you don't see dandelions, so they become much less conspicuous than they are when they're flowering. But just thought I'd throw a picture in there of a place that has done this. I want to go through some really basic principles here, though, before we get into the pest management products. I'm a firm believer that with good turf management, following mowing, fertility, irrigation practices, compaction management, all that kind of stuff, that you make your turf very healthy. You make it pest resistant just by doing all those things correctly. So I just want to talk to that just a little bit. But the importance of using good management strategies when you're taking care of that turf. Basically, a lot of people call this plant health management instead of plant pest management, or integrated plant management rather than integrated pest management. But for example, with mowing, we know that the taller the grass is, the higher it's mowed, the more heat and drought tolerant it is, the more resistant it is to insects and disease problems, fewer weed problems you're going to have. just, there's really nothing negative about mowing grass taller, except for the complaints you get from that soccer coach who thinks that all of their kids are World Cup potential soccer players, or maybe the adult soccer leagues or that type of thing, that want that ball really rolling fast on those soccer fields, or it could be the baseball coach who wants it really fast infield. But from a perspective, it's never a bad thing to mow that grass taller. Here's an example of one of the benefits of higher mowing height from a pest management perspective. And this is a study I did a number of years ago where I looked at fine fescue, which I was just evaluating for mowing tolerance and fertility and just doing general management on it. And this is one of the surprising things that came out of that study was when we mowed the grass 3 inches versus 1.5 inches, we had almost no weeds in that higher cut turf. But where it was mowed shorter, all that yellow and green stuff growing there, that's foxtail and crabgrass coming into the shorter cut fine fescue. So this is very cheap, inexpensive weed control product is raising the mowing height on whatever turf you're managing as high as you're able to do it without getting complaints. What about fertilizer? So here's a picture of a study. This is from a colleague at University of Wisconsin, Doug Soldat. And he and a bunch of colleagues did a study a number of years ago where they looked at different turf species, and they imposed different fertility regimes and mowing heights on this. And I'm just showing you a picture of their fertility part of their research. Look at the dramatic effect of optimal fertilizer applications, and this is nitrogen on weeds. So they use no herbicides on these studies anywhere. They simply varied mowing height and the amount of fertilizer they applied, and you can see how well-fertilized turf, at least back in Madison, Wisconsin, had way fewer weeds than certainly that grass that got no fertilizer, and really significantly more weed or better weed control than where even 2 applications were made per year. Whether it's irrigation, whether it's fertility, whether it's mowing height, whether it's compaction management, follow all those principles. And we're not going to go into detail on those, but I just want to throw some examples out there, at least as far as effects on pest management. And then I'll reiterate those as we talk about the different type of pests that we get in turf and how we can manage those. But, pest management, integrated pest management, whatever you want to call it, it involves a smart species selection. So when you have that opportunity to start a new field or a new park, do your homework on what are the best varieties, what are the best species for your area, the latest and greatest. Check with the seed companies. Go to the National Turf Evaluation Program ratings and look. If you have a particular disease problem or insect problem, those NTEP trials are done to screen grasses for certain diseases or insect problems. So, definitely do your homework when it comes to species selection, and then do all you can in the beginning to do a good weed control. Get rid of those really noxious perennial weeds, quackgrass or Bermuda grass or bent grass or whatever the very difficult weeds are to control. Take care of those before you plant the grass rather than trying to do it after your new grasses come up. So higher mowing heights, mow frequently, don't keep things too wet, don't keep things too dry, really monitor that irrigation, fertilize appropriately. Again, dense turf, that's competitive. It's going to have fewer weeds. You're going to have fewer disease problems. You can have quite a few insects in a very healthy turf and not even know you have an insect problem. So the healthier that grass is the more pest tolerant it's going to be. Okay, so what we're going to do is look at some of the different organic turf care products. I'm going to start out talking a little bit about fertilizers, even though we're talking about pests. But there are a lot of fertilizers out there, just really good quality stuff. Some are plant-based, some are animal-based, some are recycled, reused food products. Some are byproducts of the ag industry. There's all kinds of different sources of organic products out there. So we won't spend a lot of time on the fertilizers. There are a few good insect management tools, a few weed management ones, and a very few disease management tools. So there's not a lot out there when it comes to some of the pest management options, but lots of good fertilizer sources. And if you read your organic or natural fertilizer labels, you're going to see any number of these things in there. And obviously, when you're on the coastline, you're going to have fish products and crab meal. When you're in the Midwest, you're going to have corn gluten meal and maybe blood meal and bone meal if you're close to where animals are being slaughtered. In the South, it could be peanut meal or cotton seed meal. So use products locally, sourced locally. That's going to make those organic fertilizers less expensive, because you have to ship a lot of weight to move organic nitrogen. About the most nitrogen you're going to see in a natural organic product is maybe 10 or 12% nitrogen. But a lot of natural organics are going to be like 6%, 7%, 8%. That means you're shipping, that other 90% plus is organic matter. And that stuff's heavy, and it costs money to ship stuff long distances. So try to find locally sourced organic materials. Oops. Okay. I have a weird IT box popping up on my screen, strangely. My computer wants to keep restarting. Typical Windows thing here. So some of the different types of natural organic fertilizers, and interestingly, these can help sometimes in pest management. But one group is called biosolids, and this is human waste, sewage sludge, if you will. Probably the most well-known of these is Milorganite. Now, I'm going to talk about Milorganite right at the very end of the talk. We found some interesting things as far as managing animal problems on turf using Milorganite. So that'll be a teaser right towards the end. But Milorganite is a biosolid or sewage sludge product, and you can see it's going to be 5 or 6% nitrogen, a little bit of phosphorus, some iron, a little bit in there. But if you're in the Midwest, this is a great natural organic fertilizer source. Then we have manure products from animals like chickens. Dehydrated poultry waste is a very common one. Sometimes that's mixed with chicken feathers and bedding, and it'll be composted, sometimes granulated. But chickens can be a very good source of fertilizer. One very well-known one, again in the Midwest out of Minnesota, is one called Sustain. This is a turkey litter product, but very good fertilizer. Again, notice that it's 4% nitrogen, so you're going to have to put 25 pounds of this stuff per 1,000 square feet just to get 1 pound of nitrogen. So it's a lot of stuff. You got to put a lot of stuff out. And that, kind of a drawback to the natural organics is you have to have large storehouses and lots of pallets and lots of bags, or big sacks of this stuff. So, and it's heavy to move. So that can be a problem or a drawback, if you will. Then we have what are called the food-based natural organics, and these are very high quality. They use what they call feed-grade ingredients. So the thing here is nothing has eaten this stuff yet. So with the biosolids or the manure products, an animal has eaten that material and taken energy out of it. So these are kind of energy rich. Some people say these will be better for the health of the soil because you're putting literally food products into the soil system. But these tend to be quite expensive products, but very good fertilizer sources. Nature Safe is an example of these. If you look at that ingredient, it's meat meal, bone meal, blood meal, fish meal. So this is all food grade. This is a food grade type of fertilizer. Just really, really good stuff. And again, here we go, 5% nitrogen. So you need 20 pounds of this stuff per 1,000 to give you 1 pound of nitrogen. So a really, really good fertilizer. And again, some people say these feed grade materials provide more energy, they're a better food source for soil microbes. So this whole area of soil health management is one that's kind of popular as far as managing turf. Okay, well, here is one food grade one that makes a claim for weed control. So you may have heard that corn gluten meal, which is a great fertilizer, by the way. It's about 5 or 6% nitrogen. I mean, 10% nitrogen. So you need about 10 pounds of it per 1,000 square feet to give you 1 pound of nitrogen. But it also has this claim of being a pre-emergence herbicide. Well, there's been quite a bit of research done on that claim. And unless you go at ridiculously high rates, more like 2 pounds of nitrogen per 1,000 rates, you get very little weed control from this product. Now, you do get very healthy grass, and that in turn will help manage some weed problems. So you get suppression of weeds because of the competition, because of the really healthy grass. Very expensive fertilizer. I would doubt many of you in the audience could afford to use this parks wide. Our campus once considered using this, and then once they ran the numbers on it, there was a claim made that they would have to raise tuition at the university in order to afford this. So it's a great concept, but in reality, research shows there's very little to be gained by using this for weed control. It is a good fertilizer source, a good nitrogen source, but when it comes to weeds, relatively ineffective. And that's been done, the work's been done at Oregon State and Cornell and University of California, Washington State and Purdue. Lots of places have looked at the weed suppression abilities of corn gluten meal and found them to be probably not worth buying the product for that use. If you want to use it for fertilizer, great, but don't buy it thinking you're going to get much in the way of weed control. What about planting clover? So here, some people would say this is a weed. This is getting to be a trend. I get so many questions on this. So putting clover intentionally into turf systems to fertilize the turf. So this is a very natural way of fertilizing. That's because clover is a legume. You get the nitrogen fixation from the atmosphere, and then the clover shares some of that nitrogen with the turf it's growing in. So turf will always look a little bit greener where it's got clover growing in it. And some people have taken that to extreme. Some companies, and a company in the Netherlands, DLF Trifolium, has developed a whole series of grasses that incorporate the microclover into it. And in fact, they have organically produced grass seed now. So if you want to truly start as an organic turf from the very beginning, you can have organic grass seed, and you can plant this clover along with it to do the fertilizing. Now let's switch to the pest management part. Something I want to start out with is, this is kind of a buzzword, pollinator safety. Everyone's concerned about pollinators, a valid concern. I don't want to downplay that. One thing I would say though is oftentimes a rationale or reason that people want to use organic or natural pesticides is that they think they're going to be safer, or there's no concern for their effects on pollinators. And that is not always the case. So here's a listing of some relatively commonly used biological insecticides, fungicide products, and you can see there's quite a number in that right-hand column that are highly toxic to pollinators. So I always encourage people from a pollinator perspective, don't be lulled in thinking that just because it says it's natural or it's organic or it's certified organic, that it's safe for pollinators. And maybe even more importantly, and I would argue more importantly, that they are safe for people, or that they do not have the potential to result in, for example, water pollution or water contamination, or have non-target effects on other beneficial insects, for example. All of these, all pesticides, whether they're organic, natural, or synthetic, have the potential to cause non-target problems. So keep that in mind, and that should not be your main rationale for switching. You think it's safe for everything, and they are not always safe. So let's look at insects. What kind of alternative products are out there for insects? One really cool one has been around forever, basically 30 years or so now. It's been actually longer than that, about 40. This idea of fungal endophytes. This is a fungus that lives inside a plant. It grows inside the cells. So it gets some benefit from being in the plant. It gets energy and nutrients and water from the plant. And in return, it provides some insect feeding resistance. These seem to work really well for things like sod webworms and cutworms and armyworms. Billbug adults will feed on grass. Anything that feeds on the leaves of the plant will be repelled by these endophytes. So you can get some very dramatic control or management of insects by having endophyte enhanced grass. The very first perennial ryegrass that had it was a Manhattan ryegrass, and it was called Manhattan 2. Interestingly, this stuff, you can't get endophyte enhanced bluegrass. It won't grow in bluegrass, it won't grow in bentgrass, doesn't grow in Bermuda grass or zoysia, but it grows in the tall fescues and perennial ryegrasses and the fine fescues. So I know seed companies and breeders are trying to find ways of getting endophyte to grow in many other turf species, but for right now, it's perennial ryegrass and a few fescues. But if you're using those grasses, it's worth your while to buy what they call endophyte enhanced seed. It can only be introduced in the seed. It doesn't move with grass clippings. It doesn't move in the soil. It doesn't move from plant to plant. It's introduced to turf via seed. So keep that in mind. And it's really for foliar feeding insects. It doesn't discourage grubs and mole crickets and those type of things. So what kind of things are out there that might be used? Well, here are a bunch of turf insects. There's some bill bugs and some chinch bugs and other very moldy things that I can't even identify that are being controlled by Bovaria. And this is used probably much more in the greenhouse industry for some control of greenhouse pests. But there is the potential. These insects, though, were killed by naturally occurring Bovaria populations. So I don't see that one used very much on turf. On the other hand, we do have some pretty good bacillus or bacterial-based products for insect management in turf. And probably the best one is that last one called Bacillus thuringiensis variety Galleriae. Bacillus papillae, the first one called milky spore disease. It's been around probably 60 years now. It is still sold. It's widely sold. There's claims made that it works well on Japanese beetle, but in reality, it provides very, very minimal control. So I would, if I was going to invest in any of these, I would invest in the third one there, sold under the name Grub Gone. The middle one, if you have mosquito problems, by the way, there's a Bacillus thuringiensis, Israelianensis, that only works on mosquitoes, and it can be applied safely to water to control the larvae of mosquitoes. So that's a pretty cool thing. But the Beetle Gone, the Grub Gone products, they're both the Bacillus thuringiensis, work very, very effectively. They have to be reapplied. They don't have residual from one year to the next. So you have to use them every year. But there's a granular one called Grub Gone that you put down as a granular, targeting the grub form of the Japanese beetle. And then the Beetle Gone can be applied for the managing the adults that might be feeding. And those of you that live in Japanese beetle country, we're just getting them here in the Front Range of Colorado. We have them in Denver and Pueblo and now in Fort Collins. They can be a pretty tough problem on landscape ornamentals, your roses and linden trees and grapes and Virginia creepers. So the Beetle Gone can be sprayed safely on those plants, those landscape plants, without harming pollinators, which is a pretty cool thing. And then the Grub Gone similarly is granular, applied to the lawn for controlling the grubs. So very, very effective control. These Bacillus products tend to be quite species specific. So these aren't going to harm non-target good insects in your turf system. They're just going to be going after the bad guys, the Japanese beetle, the chafers, the June beetles, those type of insects. So if I was going to use my money and spend my money, these are the ones that are labeled for white grubs, but I would stick very, very much with just the Bacillus thuringiensis galleriae. This is the one that's broader spectrum. It's going to work on all the white grubs. The others have limited control or limited effectiveness. So, and then just some notes from University of Connecticut, University of Massachusetts, where they've done a lot of research with the milky spore, basically saying this really doesn't work very well. If it makes you feel better using it, but that's all it's going to do is make you feel better. It's not really going to work. Another cool thing for insects, this is nematodes. So these are nematodes, little tiny worms, and that dead grub there is totally filled with nematodes. The interesting thing is it's not always the nematode that kills the insect. The nematode will have a bacteria that lives inside the nematode. And then when the nematode gets into the insect, it releases some of that bacteria, and that's what actually will kill the insect. So, but kind of a double whammy. It's really a pretty cool insect management tool, if you will, kind of a Trojan horse kind of a thing here. But then once that insect is killed, all these nematodes, they bust out, and they, as in this picture, they go out looking for another grub to infect, and so that's how they kind of get spread around in the soil. But once they run out of grubs to feed on, then they die off, and that's why you have to reapply these nematodes every year. Now you have to be careful which nematodes you get in the turf situation. You want to get the one in the yellow box, the one called the Heterorhabditis. Much more effective. It's the one that works well on the grubs, and it's really the only one that we recommend for insect management in a turf situation. So, some things to know about nematodes. These are live when you buy them. You have to keep them cold. I tell people it's like sushi. You don't go get sushi takeout and then decide, 2 weeks later, hey, let's have this for lunch. Not a good thing. So use them soon after you buy them. We'll check the expiration date. If you can't apply them right away, definitely put them in a refrigerator. Apply them when it's cloudy, and then water them in immediately. Apply them right before dark and water them immediately. Don't apply them on a hot, bright, sunny, dry day and leave them there to toast in the sun because they will die. So you have to apply them correctly, okay? The application rates to these nematodes are amazing. They're really small, so you're talking 1 billion per acre. Pretty cool thing. One little trick here is take the screens if you use a sprayer. Don't use high pressure. Use very low pressure. Don't mix. Don't use your sparging element. And take the screens out, because otherwise you'll slice and dice these poor guys going through the screen. So be very careful with how you apply these. Some other things that are out there: parasitic wasps. Now these mainly occur naturally, though in the Northeast they're starting to introduce these things intentionally. We're starting actually to play with these a little bit in Colorado. We've gotten permission to do this. This is a white grub. This wasp laid an egg. They dig down in the soil. They find a grub. They lay an egg on it, and here the egg is hatched, and a little larva is sucking the life out of this white grub. And now here is the larva, and there's what's left of the white grub. So they kill that white grub as they mature, and then this thing will pupate. It'll fly out of the ground and fly around, and the adults will again find other grubs to lay eggs on. So very cool grub management. We're looking at this one because it's very species specific for Japanese beetle, and so we've introduced these into Colorado for Japanese beetle control. People often ask, do pheromone traps work for insect control? You can get impressive numbers of Japanese beetle and Oriental beetle and a few other beetles in these pheromone traps. The problem is you're not even touching or denting the population by what you trap in the bag, and unfortunately it's probably attracting more beetles, more adults to your property than would normally occur if you had the trap out. So these are good for scouting. They're good for knowing when you have Japanese beetle, and that can help you know when to apply, for example, a biological, a nematode or a bacillus. But they do not really do a good job for managing the insect pests. And these things, they have a floral lure, so a food scent, and then they have a sex attractant for both the male and the female. So you get these things going to the trap, thinking they're going to get a good meal and have a wild time, and neither one is going to happen, unfortunately, for them. So here's something called spinosad. This has been around for a long time. This is certified organic. This is really good for caterpillars. Not good for grubs or bill bugs or beetles or those kind of things, but things that are caterpillars, so like sod webworms, might be controlled with the spinosad. So this is probably have limited use and usefulness for turf management. But if you got sod webworms, it might be worth trying, especially if you have a really severe sod webworm problem and you don't want to be using traditional insecticides. But it's not going to control the adults. It's only going to control the larvae. Neem oil and neem extract. has got a reputation for controlling insects, and what it does is it essentially prevents them from going through their life cycles, from pupating and forming an adult. So, and it may make them stop feeding. They may get a little bit of indigestion from this stuff, but you're not going to get super, super good control in most cases, but it's another product that you might consider trying. Finally, something I want to talk about, and this looks like a traditional insecticide, and I guess technically it is, but something called a Celiprin. So Celiprin is sold by Syngenta. It's a great grub insecticide, but it works on bill bugs and it works pretty well on sod webworms and a lot of insects, mole crickets. Really effective control, 95% plus control of grubs. Interesting thing, it is totally pollinator safe. It is totally people safe. It is totally wildlife safe, bee safe, bird safe, kid safe, pet safe. It doesn't even have a caution, warning, or danger on the label. It was the first pesticide that came out without a signal word. It is considered to be that safe. The only requirements are down here. You should wear a long sleeve shirt and long pants, and you should wear socks if you do apply this. So, like, I don't know anyone that doesn't, but maybe you have people that do. But really, really good. And so why would I be mentioning it here? Well, it's because the idea for this and the chemistry came from a plant. It's based on a plant called a Rhyania. It comes from the bark of that plant. So biologists studied this plant and wondered, why does it get so few insect problems? Well, this plant produces its own insecticide in its bark. And so DuPont was able to duplicate or manufacture this plant-produced product, and that's what's in the Celiprin product. So I tell organic lawn care companies, for example, looking for an effective organic insecticide, that this is as close as you're going to get to something that's organic or natural and effective. And I tell them how it came from this product or from this plant. You know, if you're going to use this, basically you're going to be applying this early in the year. Probably, unless if you have bill bugs where you do it early, you know, end of March, early April. Otherwise, if you don't have bill bugs, it's a problem. If grubs are more your problem, I would wait till sometime in May, perhaps early June, to apply it. It does need a lot of water, so apply it watered in really, really, really well, but you'll get amazing control of all the insects shown here. What about organic weed management? We have way fewer products here for weed management that's natural or organic. So here are some examples of what I call burn down products. These are pretty limited usefulness in turf because they're non-selective. They will turn any plant brown when you spray it on them. Not a good thing to do to your favorite soccer field or park. But I mention them because in certain situations, maybe spot treating, probably more useful in landscape beds around your turf areas. Maybe more useful in gravel areas where you have weeds growing, mulch. These will burn weeds down. They're not systemic, so you don't get the roots being killed. You don't get rhizomes being killed. So these aren't going to kill thistle or Bermuda grass with one application. Now, if you continually apply these to really difficult perennials and you keep burning them down, eventually you'll kill that plant because it uses up all its energy trying to grow back. But that's the only way you're going to kill a perennial plant with these. Just saw a question, what about using this on a playground? Yes, you can use these on playgrounds. And so we've got schools that have gone pesticide free in Colorado, and they'll use these to burn down weeds. Here's the thing, they work much better, and they work really well. They do work super well on small weeds, very small weeds. You'll get, as I show here, you'll get weed control in 20 to 30 minutes on a real hot sunny day. Okay. Kind of a negative about these is that the active ingredients in some of these can be they can burn your skin. They will burn your eyes. I can tell you that. So many of them have a warning or danger label, which is kind of off-putting for using in a playground situation. But it's not that there's any toxicity concerns about being absorbed into the body and causing those kind of things. It's more skin burn, eye burn, and this will be for the applicator. As soon as they're dried, these things are safe, as other insecticides are. So there is concern or hazard, if you will, using these things and especially mixing them. Okay, so that's where you have to be really kind of careful using these. I'll show you what they look like using them in a turf situation. Here's a crabgrass plant I'm spraying in turf, and there it is on the weed. And here the turf around the weed has been burned back. And this is like just maybe a week later. And look what's growing back. The weed is growing back much better than the turf around it is. So this is not what I would call an effective weed management tool in a turf situation, that you get brown spots all over your turf trying to kill a weed that does grow back. So I would not be a fan of using those soap and citric oil, citric acid products in a turf situation. Here's another product I want to talk about, something that's called horticultural vinegar. And as an alternative to Roundup. So I did some research with this. Horticultural vinegar, acetic acid. So, you have your, what we call culinary vinegar. I'm going to skip ahead here for a second to this slide. So culinary or table vinegar, distilled white vinegar, is 5% acetic acid. You can get weed control acetic acid, which is 20%. Big difference. Okay. Now you get a little bit of acetic acid, table vinegar in your eyes. It might burn a little bit. You got a little cut on your skin, you'll feel it. But you spill some of this hort vinegar on your skin while you're putting it into a sprayer. And here's the thing: is you apply this undiluted. So you buy a gallon, you apply a gallon straight. You don't dilute it. That stuff, number one, you open the bottle, hold it way away from your face. Because it's going to shock you with the pungency. But you get it in your eyes, you could be blind from this stuff. It's expensive. So we're talking, $34 per 1,000 square feet to apply this if you were going to do a turf renovation and try to kill everything. But then you need about 3 applications to kill the grass. So you have to apply it, wait about 2 weeks, apply it again, wait 2 weeks, and then apply it again. That's $100 per 1,000 square feet. That is $4,000 an acre. That's a lot of money that you could spend doing something else. On the other hand, you can do Roundup for 2 applications for about $1.70. And then if you use the generics, it's going to be even less than that per 1,000 square feet. So you're talking $100 per 1,000 square feet versus about $2 or less. So that's why Roundup makes a whole lot more sense. You could do the hort vinegar if you can afford it. It's going to take 3 applications. You will kill the grass with that if you're doing a renovation, but I wouldn't recommend it. Finally, here's some iron-containing herbicides. So probably the best known one is something called Fiesta. But there's some other ones listed here too, and their prices. So you apply these as about an 8% solution. Some come already diluted, ready to use. Others, you have to dilute them yourselves. You get very rapid burn down of broadleaf weeds. So you're not going to control grassy weeds with these. And I'll show you some pictures, but basically you're applying very concentrated iron. So here's Fiesta and Thistle that I applied. This is 24 hours after application. Went from green to brown that quickly. Here's a Dandelion that within about 5 hours did that. So this is on a hot sunny day. Now you can see there's a little turf discoloration around it, and you'll get a little bit of ding on the bluegrass or ryegrass or whatever it is. But you mow that off pretty quickly. It does not kill the grass. It doesn't burn the grass significantly. Here's the thing, is you're going to have to reapply it. So go back to this slide. We're talking 3 applications, again, about every 21 days, somewhere in there. Every 21 days. And you will kill dandelions, bindweed, thistle, black medic, clover. You can kill broadleaf weeds pretty effectively with this. In some parts of Canada, this is what they're using. This is all they can use because they're in situations where lawn care, even homeowner do-it-yourself, prohibits using traditional herbicides. And so this is what they have to use. Now, if you're willing to stretch your definition of organic, here's something, a material called Tenacity. The chemical name is mesotrione. It was derived from a plant called the bottlebrush plant. This is an ornamental. You see this in Palm Springs, Southern California, over in the Las Vegas area. It's a landscape ornamental, very pretty plant, but it produces a chemical that suppresses weeds around it. And so Syngenta was able to find a way to synthesize this and turn it into something called mesotrione, which will kill weeds. Does it by a very interesting process where it turns the weeds white. It destroys the ability of the plant to create pigments. So no chlorophyll, no carotenoids, no pigments at all. So the plant turns white, and then it turns brown, then it dies. Controls mainly grassy weeds, but it'll do broadleafs a little bit. But some really tough perennial and annual grassy weeds. To do nimblewill, not listed here as Bermuda grass though. So you don't want to be, if you're in Bermuda grass territory, don't be using Tenacity on your Bermuda grass. You'll really zing it. But if you're where they have nimblewill, this is the only product labeled for nimblewill control. Again, you're probably going to need 2 or 3 applications of this stuff. But very low use rates. That's why they give you a syringe with this. There's a generic one out. Tenacity was the only one for years, and now there's something that's just called mesotrione. And this is what it does to the plant. You spray, here's a crabgrass plant that was sprayed, and it turns it white, and then eventually kills it and turns it brown. So it can be very effective. One of the cool things about Tenacity is you can apply it at the same time as seeding a new turf. And the grass seed will come up, but it'll control weeds pre-emerge. And then later on, once that turf is established, you can apply it post-emerge for weed control too. So really cool, very flexible product. And now there's a generic one out there. Finally, let's spend a few minutes talking about disease management and alternatives. There are very few options, to be quite honest. So really what you want to depend on is good turf management. I'm going to show you an example of how turf management, so I had a fellow with a lawn care company in Atlanta text me a picture the other day, and it was just earlier just a few months ago. So on June 15th, here's a picture he texted me, and by the way, at the end, I'm going to give you my cell phone number. Call me crazy. But I do this for folks, and I learned from this too. So he texted me a picture of a Bermuda grass lawn, a customer. in Atlanta. And he says, do you think this is a dollar spot? And one of the lessons here is when you text me that picture, tell me who you are and where you are, and if you know what kind of grass it is, because otherwise it gets a little dicey for me trying to figure out what the problem is and diagnose it properly. But yeah, this is dollar spot. So all I recommended to him, because this is an organic lawn care company, I recommended that he put 1 pound or 1.5 pounds of nitrogen on, and have as much quick nitrogen in there as possible. And I asked him for a follow-up, and just a couple of weeks ago, he sent me a picture of that very same lawn, and he did 1 round of fertilizer, and it made a huge difference. So dollar spot is what we call a low nitrogen disease. So if you've got turf that's nitrogen deficient, quite often you can suppress the dollar spot happening on that turf simply by putting some nitrogen fertilizer on. So that's just an example of how you can use cultural practices to manage diseases. You don't always have to be looking for a fungicide to get pretty darn good control. Here's another cool example. So if you have spring dead spot on Bermuda grass, which is a pernicious, really problematic disease in the spring on Bermuda grass, there's been some work done at University of Missouri that looked at phrase mowing, which is just pretty much kind of removing the top, say 1/2 to 3/4 inch of turf, leaving all the rhizomes and stolons and that type of stuff behind, and then the Bermuda grass grows back. And so this has turned into a kind of a cool thatch management tool, grooming tool, a leveling tool, if you will, for Bermuda grass fields. And now we're starting to look at it on cool season fields. But kind of a side benefit, potentially, of phrase mowing is that you get less spring dead spot on your Bermuda grass. And this phrase mowing is typically done in the spring on Bermuda grass. Then you fertilize that Bermuda-like heck to recover. But it's a pretty good thatch management, grass management tool. And researchers found less spring dead spot where you phrase mowed in about equal control to a fungicide. So that's pretty cool. But then if you put a fungicide on after phrase mowing, you got even better spring dead spot control. So just a couple examples of cultural practices that can be used to manage diseases. One thing that's out there that is labeled for turf disease management is this stuff called Green Cure. This is potassium bicarbonate. Now it's got a label for disease management. And if you look at these diseases, they're just foliar diseases, things like leaf spot, that type of thing. Anthracnose is on there, but I don't think any superintendent would ever use this on a golf course green for anthracnose control. But this is probably more useful if you're a rosarian. I know a guy that was a breeder for Jackson Perkins roses here in Fort Collins, and he swears by this stuff that it is the best black spot and mildew control for his roses that he's ever seen. So, and it's natural or organic, whatever you want to call it. So, beyond that, there are a lot of things that get credit for suppressing disease, and there's a whole list of things for dollar spot out there, because that's dollar spot's probably the most expensive and most common turf disease worldwide. So there's lots of races on to find a good biological control as well as the best chemical control. But these are all products that are out there that have been shown to suppress the disease. So they don't stop it, they don't eliminate it. You have high pressure, you're going to get disease, even if you use these products. But if you have low pressure, if you've got conditions that aren't perfectly optimal for dollar spot, you'll probably get less dollar spot by using one of these materials. Okay. Just some more examples. Here's some work done at Oregon State University using iron sulfate and phosphoric acid for pink snow mold suppression. Look at that bottom picture. Pretty darn good control using iron and something called Duraphyte, which is a phosphoric acid product. But look at the frequency. Every 2 weeks, October through April, that's a lot of frequency. So here's one of the downsides to sometimes these organic or natural products is they require very frequent application. So you have to measure, you have to do the cost benefit analysis. The products are expensive, but probably as expensive as the product is the labor to make those reapplications. So you absolutely have to factor that in. Now, if you're in lawn care and you can factor it in and still make a profit on a customer, that's a great deal. You just have to price your lawn care appropriately. But when you're in a park situation, you have a limited budget, you can't be eating up all the other parts of your budget by paying for labor to apply a natural organic. So you really have to do the cost benefit here when it comes to labor with some of these. I'm going to skip over some of this disease stuff just because I'm a little over time here. Last thing I want to talk about is rabbits. And, some people say that they just express amazement that rabbits could be a turf problem, but not here in Colorado and other parts around here, Utah and up into Wyoming, rabbits. And it's the cottontail. It's not like jackrabbits. Are causing really severe problems in turf systems. And they look very innocent out there, but what they do is they tend to feed in the same place over and over. They mow the turf very, very, very short, and eventually that kills the grass. And then we get these large areas of dead turf. And this is all from rabbit feeding. So trying to find ways of repelling rabbits and managing rabbits legally, because you can't shoot them. Oftentimes you can't trap them. Or if you do trap them, then what do you do with this trapped animal? And you trap them, and a day later, there's another rabbit in the place of the one trapped. So trapping's not really effective. We know that exclusion is the most effective, and in parts of the world where rabbits are a huge problem, like Australia, the United Kingdom, just for agriculture, they have to fence rabbits out. Otherwise, their crops are destroyed in their fields. So we know that excluding with fencing is the most effective tool, but that's not always possible. And a lot of times people say, I'll diagnose rabbit injury, and people say, I never see rabbits. I don't see how it could be, and it's because rabbits feed at night. So this is a picture I took one night. I was teaching somewhere, and I just taught about rabbits. And I came out to my car, and I turned the car on, the lights go on. I see all these rabbits all over this turf, running around, having a party in the lawn. And here was the most remarkable thing one of the most remarkable things that's ever happened to me, is right in front of me as I was taking pictures of these rabbits, as an owl came down and got one of those rabbits in the headlights of my car, which was wildly entertaining. And those of you who are old enough to remember having watched Wild Kingdom, which means that you're definitely older than 50, I would say. If any of you are in your 20s and 30s, you have no idea what Wild Kingdom is, but this was like Wild Kingdom in this lawn. And this owl rode this rabbit around for about a half an hour before it finally was able to kill the rabbit and take off. I think it was a young horned owl. But I just stood there for about a half hour, watched this owl in the headlights of my car. And so we're seeing very large increases in owl populations and hawks and that type of thing, and snakes in some places, bull snakes in response to the rabbits. And now we have a rabbit disease, rabbit hemorrhagic disease, where the rabbits bleed to death, which sounds like a very bad way to go. Fortunately, it's not a problem for humans or pets or anything, but we're starting to see that as a mini pandemic in the rabbits anyway here in Colorado. But if you don't have good natural controls, a lot of times around HOAs where there's no pets or anything, and maybe parks where they don't allow pets, and we don't have owls and hawks, we get lots of rabbits feeding. What can be here's a video. I don't know if you can see this. I forgot I had this. Some people are offended by this, so I'm going to stop that. But sorry, I forgot I had that in there. Okay. enough of the video. What can you do if you don't have good pests? Well, there's some sprays that can work, but way too expensive. But something that can be effective is mill-organite fertilizer, which I talked about an hour ago now. Biosolids, and in particular mill-organite, seems to discourage feeding of rabbits. They go somewhere else to feed because they have to stick their nose down into the turf. Now, early on, I had a question from Richard, what's the most effective fertilizer that's low odor? As far as natural organics, corn gluten meal doesn't have much of an odor, although any of them will often have kind of a funk to them when they get wet. So like corn gluten meal, when it gets wet, I think it smells kind of like a dead mouse is the best way to describe it. That's been sitting in your pantry for a few days too long. These things are protein. When protein gets wet and it's hot and it's humid, you can get some funky aromas. But the ones that are probably least likely to cause an odor problem, anything that's got alfalfa base, wheat, soybean, cottonseed meal, peanuts, those don't have an aroma to them. And the mill-organite, after about a day, even a half a day, you don't smell it. You might smell it on yourself. Here's the thing, is the person applying this will often get dust and stuff. When I was a golf course superintendent in a previous life in Chicago, we used almost exclusively mill-organite because we were close enough to Milwaukee that we would get semi-loads just dumped at our golf course, and we use this at our golf course. And it was great fertilizer, but you did not want to draw the "I'm fertilizing today" straw, because you kind of smelled and tasted that stuff for days after you applied it. But another thing, if you're in a place where voles are a problem, these little mouse-like critters, the mill-organite seems to suppress vole activity as well. So I think that is probably my last slide. Oh yeah, one more thing. Skunks and raccoons and armadillos don't like mill-organite apparently. So if you're a place where you have grub problems and you get the animals digging, applying mill-organite will seem to discourage them. So you might do that once you start seeing digging in an area. Just go out and get some mill-organite and apply it, and that can discourage them, at least in that area, from returning for a few nights. Let's see, questions. Have you heard anything about mites for controlling bindweed? Okay, bindweed mites, yes. So bindweed mites, I've used them at my house. I have about 6 acres of land up near the Wyoming border. It's non-irrigated, it's dry land, and I get bindweed up there. The bindweed mites will work, in my opinion, they work best where you have bindweed growing where there's no water being applied. If the bindweed has access to water, it appears to grow out of the mite injury. The bindweed just grows too fast for the mites to control the bindweed. So if it's unirrigated, unstimulated by water, the bindweed mites can work. Yeah. So I encourage people to try them. I mean, there's not much to lose, except they can be a little pricey depending on where you get the bindweed mites. And they're easy enough to spread. Once you get bindweed mites introduced, you can see the bindweed, it gets stunted. It looks like it's been sprayed with a herbicide. You just pull that clump of bindweed up and move it to a healthy bindweed patch, and you'll spread the bindweed mites. So you can move them around pretty easily. What are my thoughts on mycorrhizal fungi? Well, mycorrhizae, scientifically they're great, and they occur naturally on native plants. They assist in phosphorus uptake, micronutrient uptake. They can confer drought resistance to plants. So it's a symbiotic relationship. It's kind of like the legumes, the rhizobia that's in the clover root system. So the mycorrhizae get a benefit from the plant, and the plant gets a benefit from the mycorrhizae. In a turf situation, there are mycorrhizal products sold for turf. What I will say is you're not going to do any harm by using those. But what I will also say is I find no compelling scientific evidence that there's any benefit to using them. So like with many of these products, people say, well, I know they work, and it's like, okay, that's great. They can't prove they work, but in their mind, they know they work. And so what I tell people is if it helps you sleep better at night, which is always a good thing for any turf person, go ahead and use them. They're not going to cause any problem except maybe a significant impact on your budget, because they can be pretty expensive. So I would do little trials. I would do side by side, split a park, or do one park and not other parks, or just do little squares in a park somewhere, and test these things to see if you can discern any benefit to using them. And if you can't, then that in itself, though not, I guess you would call these crudely scientific or citizen science, but at least that to some degree will explain or tell you, should I use this stuff or not? So, are there any other questions in the chat?
I'm going to pop back in because I think it looks good. Oh, there's Luke. Luke just came in with a question.
Recommend a herbicide product for sport surface such as tennis courts. Oh, so is it a grass tennis court or a non-grass tennis court? Like synthetic tennis court?
Maybe he may be typing or he may not be typing.
Idle soaps.
Oh, there it is. Non-grass hard surface.
Yeah, the herbicidal soaps. So I'll go backwards and I'll make everyone sick doing this. But any of these burn down products, right? So these products, these non-selective burn down products, they got potassium salts, fatty acids. Some of them have clove oil, citric acid. These things, those can be worked. Here's what I would do though on that surface, is do a test spot. And I always tell people to do this because I use these on my flagstone patio, and they'll leave a stain. They'll leave a discoloration, if you will. And it does not bother me because I'm more after the weed control. But they have oils in them, they have soaps in them, and it could leave a spot, if you will, on your surfaces. So always test them before you go out and spray 20 weeds, and then people say, "What's this spot on the tennis court?" So, but those should work. Or try the herbicidal acetic acid or the horticultural vinegar products. They could work too.
Okay, Tara had one more question about mites.
Mites affect. Oh no. So the bindweed mites are very species specific. They're specific just to bindweed. That's a cool thing. And about any insect biocontrol, if you have to do any kind of, pasture, rangeland weed control, there are all kinds of really cool bio weed insect pests, but they're very, very specific to the weeds. They don't jump to other species. So that's a cool thing about those insect controls for weeds, which I didn't talk about, but range management people and greenbelt people use those insect control agents, if you will. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put my last slide up, which has my email address and my phone number. So that's my cell phone number, folks. You can call me at 3 in the morning. I may actually answer. Probably not though. Although my son's in India, so he'll call me every once in a while, and they're actually 12 hours difference, and he forgets. But he texts me pictures of problems. If you have disease, if you have weeds you can't identify, a grass you need identified, text me. Don't be shy. Tell me who you are and where you are, though. So, there's a big difference between Florida and Oregon. And as far as the weeds and the diseases and the insects and the grasses. So I need to know, where you are, who you are, that kind of thing. So otherwise it's just a number pops up, and it's a great mystery trying to do diagnostics that way. So it's been very, very good talking to you. If you think of questions after this, send me an email, text me, do whatever you want. Something, you get the burning question, you're up at midnight because this was so good and so fun. I wish I would have asked that. Ask me before you forget.
All right. Well, thank you, Tony, so very much. If you will put up our sponsor slide for me, I want to recognize the sponsors one more time, because frankly, they're the ones covering the cost of your CEUs.
Oh, okay.
And we want to thank them for really helping us out with that. Those of you, hopefully before you pop off, those of you who are showing up under another name, or if you are on an iPhone or a Galaxy phone, if you could email me and let me know that. I tried to take roll. I tried to make sure all of you with requests for CEUs are indeed on the session, because that's how it counts. So if you by chance were on an iPhone and I couldn't see your name, would you please let me know that? You will get another email from me with an evaluation link in it. So I'll be sending that out to you. And if you would please fill that out for me, because that's another piece of the CEU part. And if you would like to join us next week with Dr. Whitney Cranshaw's presentation on landscape for insects or not, please email me so I can get you on that email list as well. So thank you again for joining us. Thank you very much, Dr. Koski. And I will say at this point, we'll see you next week if you want to join us. Thanks so much. Bye, Clay.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, Clay.
Bye, Mindy.
Hey,
Bye.
Tony, I have a quick question for you.
Sure.
We live around a pond, and I'm curious if there is something we could suggest to our landscape company, because there are fish and we have fishing around all of our ponds in our neighborhood. Is there something that could be used to green it up better without, because the watershed's going to run into the pond, so that's something we have to constantly consider.
Well, so what do you want to do to the pond? You want to?
No, we want to make the grass around the ponds greener. We have a geese problem, so we're trying to keep them off of it, but we're doing a pretty good job with that this year. We're just trying to figure out how to help the grass, kind of come back a lot better.
Well, probably the best thing to do is to stop mowing it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So we call them buffer strips. And so you'll see this a lot on golf courses now, is they will stop mowing a strip of, when it's not in play, okay? But they'll stop mowing and have a strip of anywhere, maybe 6 feet from the edge of the water that they just don't mow anymore. They let it grow taller.
Yeah.
And that helps the grass do better, but it'll keep stuff from running off the turf into the water. So if they are applying fertilizer or anything, it just doesn't, you get very little surface runoff.
Gotcha.
And actually what it can also do is it can actually discourage geese from coming back. They don't like the tall stuff. They like it really short.
Yeah. Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Do you have a suggestion for grasshoppers? We just seem to be invading by grasshoppers.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, they're bad. If you can start early in the season, there's something called Nosema. I don't know if Nosema. So Nosema. It's a bait that you can put out, and you just spread the stuff wherever you have the grasshopper problem. And then the new ones that come out of the ground in the spring, they feed on this stuff, and it messes them up so they don't mate and they don't mature. And that's an organic way of taking care of grasshoppers. Otherwise, it's just getting, if they're on your vegetables, plants in your garden, go out and get vegetables.
Yeah.
Insect spray at the Home Depot or Lowe's, but you have to keep reapplying it because the grasshoppers just keep coming back. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you again.
Or
And,
get ducks and turkeys and chickens love grasshoppers, and they'll eliminate all of them in your garden.
if I could put those in my yard, that'd be great.
Yeah, up here in Fort Collins, you can have chickens.
I loved
You can have chickens and ducks.
I loved your association of the nematodes with Susie. That was really good.
Yeah,
Keep them in the refrigerator.
that's right.
Okay, everybody, I'm going to let everybody go now. So thanks again for joining us. We'll see you later. Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, Mindy.
Bye.
Bye.